Hello, my name is Beck and welcome to my March to be read pile. I usually do my TBR piles 2 months at a time, so my February and January TBR was combined, and I'd usually do that with March and April as well, but I think the Owls Readathon is going to start in April, so I might do a separate TBR for that because I believe it's a month-long readathon. If that doesn't happen, I'll just have to film a separate TBR for April regardless, because March is like a middle grade March, so you read books tiered younger than young adult. I will leave the kind of creator of Middle Grade March down in the description so you can go and check out their videos as well, because I have stumbled across it and I don't believe there are that many challenges or any challenges at all. The main challenge is just to read middle grade for March, and that's what I plan on doing because I have some middle grade on my reading list. The first book on my middle grade reading list for March is The Magician by, I think, Michael Scott? Yes, Michael Scott. And this book, the first one, is called The Alchemist, and it follows a set of twins as they kind of encounter their magical abilities and their links to a bunch of different mythological gods, especially from like Egyptian and Greek mythology, which I really enjoyed. I read the first book a while ago. I think I gave it like a 3 stars maybe, but a friend of mine really enjoyed this whole series and he really recommended it to me, so I went out and bought all of them. So I have not only The Magician on my TBR but the rest of the series as well. If I remember, I will put them all here so you can see all of their beautiful covers because I personally adore these covers. So I am putting one book technically in this video, but I have like 6 books or 5 books to read for this series, so no pressure, right? I'm gonna add 5 books to this list and I read about 5 or 6 books to 7 books in a month, so we'll see how many of these I actually get through that I'm going to talk about next. The next book is actually Scorch Dragons by Amy Kaufman, and I read Ice Wolves, I think, not 2019, maybe it was 2018. I really enjoyed that first book as well, and the second book was supposed to be read by me last year and I just kept not finding time to read it, so that's why I'm putting this on my to be read pile for March and trying to hold myself accountable. So you've probably seen this in a couple of videos if you've been subscribed for a little while, and I plan on reading it. I have not forgotten about it, I promise. This follows again a set of, I think they're twins or they're just brother and sister, and there are 2 different clans, so the Scorch Dragons and the Ice Wolves, and people tend to become these shapeshifters at a certain age. So the 2 siblings that we follow, one of them has become a Scorch Dragon and then one of them can become a Ice Wolf, and they go off to their respective schools to have this study thrust upon them. But technically the wolves and the dragons are rivals and enemies, and now that one sibling has gone to each house, they want to reunite and find each other. So in the first book, it's really about them coming together and finding each other again. And I don't want to go into what this second book is about. I actually haven't really read a blurb. I just kind of remember vaguely how the last one ended. So I'm looking forward to reading this middle grade fantasy book. It was a lot of fun and it was pretty digestible because it's for a younger audience. The writing and the text in here is a little bit bigger, which is why I am a little bit worried adding so many books to my reading list, but I know that they're a little bit deceptive because they look like a whole book and then they're probably, you know, like 250 pages. So it's not like I'm reading a 450 page to 550 page book every single book that I pick up. The next book I've actually read, so this is technically a reread, but I read this book so long ago and I really enjoyed reading the first one, and it is Class A by Robert Muchamore, and this is the sequel to Cherub. So this is a book series that follows children who are brought into, I guess, MI6 and they become spies, and it's really cool to go on all of these different individual quests and find out what each character is getting up to. That said, I don't like the main character, James. He's pretty rude and he's kind of a jerk. I do like his sister Lauren though, and so I like seeing her on her own adventures. This book is about James going to uncover Europe's biggest cocaine dealer, apparently, and he'll need specialist training if he's going to bring down the man on the top, according to the back. So I really enjoy that premise. I assume this is going to be pretty fast paced. Most of the books in this series are, from what I can remember. So I'm really looking forward to diving back into my reading experience because I know I had a good one when I first read this series. This is kind of in a similar vein to Alex Rider. I remember reading both of them when I was like 14 and loved obviously both of them. So I'm looking forward again to my foray back into this series. Next up I have a book, and I've talked about this before and I said that it was part of the Rick Riordan Presents imprint, but it doesn't appear to be, and so I must have just made a mistake because I saw a recommendation blurbed on the back. So it is like Arisha and the End of Time. So people who like that book by Rick Riordan Presents imprint will like the book I'm about to talk about, and that is Maya and the Rising Dark. And this follows a girl who is daydreaming about her summer back in Southside Chicago, and one day she sees all of the color bleed from the world and she goes to talk to her friends about it, but they don't know what she's talking about. So I'm assuming it's going to have some kind of like magical element to it and some kind of quest to it. And honestly, when it comes to middle grade or any book really, I'm really invested if there's, you know, a set of characters that aren't really that close at the beginning, but then form found families and strong friendships by going on quests. So this sounds like it's really up my alley. This cover is beautiful. This book doesn't actually come out until like May, I think. Yeah, on the back it says the 5th of May, so I was really lucky to get an advance reading copy of this. I did a trade for it at the end of last year on Twitter, so this arrived before I went on my holiday, but I still haven't read it, so that's kind of the story of my life. And then last on this list isn't actually a middle grade book, but I have the audiobook for it, and it is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames, I think. Yes, Eames, I got the surname right. I know this is a adult fantasy. I obviously have the audiobook for it and I'm really excited about reading it. I only know that it follows a bunch of veterans who back in their prime used to be incredible warriors, and now one of their daughters has been kidnapped, so they've got to get the band back together and go and rescue her. That's the basis of the plot that I know. I really love the kind of illustrated quality of this cover, and I've heard positive reviews about it. So again, adult fantasy, something that I kind of dive into fairly regularly, so I'm looking forward to diving into this one as well. I thought I'd mention it even though it's not necessarily middle grade. I'll probably be listening to the audiobook if I get around to it in March. So this was just a short little TBR. Everything actually kind of seems color coordinated, which I didn't intend, but this is the stack of books that I really want to read for middle grade March, for my March reading list. If you've read any of these, please do let me know in the comments. I really love talking in the comments with you guys about what you're reading, and I would really appreciate if you gave this video a thumbs up because that helps me out just a little bit. So thank you so much for watching. I will chat to you in the comments and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. No.